me later. They come up with a fucking update. Hopefully
that was live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the Real Forno Show. Always great when you've got a great production team behind you. We're going to talk here about quarterbacks. We're also going to absolutely bury the organization for the mishandling of the Jonathan Allen stuff. But why is it maybe completely different from what you're expecting? Welcome to an in-depth breakdown episode and the return of Xs and SKOLs here on the Real Forno Show.
Xs and SKOLs with Tyler Forness and Luke Braun, dissecting the All-22 for your Minnesota Vikings.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Forno Show and a special return of Xs and SKOLs. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, producer Dave in the bottom right corner this time. And to my left, he is Mr. Fancy Pants himself, Luke Braun, and we will have a special announcement toward the end of the show, so you're going to want to stick around for that. We're going to hear to talk about the quarterback position, but I think first we would be remiss because, Luke, I know you talked about it on your show today, and it was very good, but we got to bury the hell out of this team. What in the freaking hell are they doing with this Jonathan Allen thing, man? It's obvious Allen didn't play up to the expectations of a $17 million average annual contract, which is fine, but how they're handling things is just baffling to me for an organization that really wants to be consistent and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, so I recorded the show that went up today, like kind of right in the wake of it, so I was still like hot about it, so I could get that good podcast energy.
Oh yeah.
But I guess let me try to explain my issue with it in more like concrete, objectivist terms. There is a difference between a player who is bad and a player who does not live up to his paycheck. And Jonathan Allen highlights that difference. There are players who just, though that guy stinks, he's not good, he should be off your team. Hot take, DJ Moore, right? Addition by subtraction kind of stuff. That's a guy that just by getting him out of there and letting somebody else kind of grow in his place, you maybe can do some good, plus the draft compensation like the Bears get back and all that. So it's this great trade for the Bears. Or I think of like a couple years ago, Dean Lowry, right? That guy just wasn't very good, and he wasn't paid a lot, so you didn't expect him to be good. And so he didn't really get that same level of scrutiny than Jonathan Allen, where the expectation was higher. So Jonathan Allen probably missed out on that threshold of, is he satisfying my expectations for him, by more than someone like Dean Lowry did. But if you stack those two guys up against each other, it's clear who you want on your team more. If both those guys were going to sign a free agent contract, it's clear who would make more money. And it's important not to lose sight of that. And I see a lot of sour grapes about all these guys. I see people saying, oh, Jonathan Grenard, he's not even good. He's coming off a shoulder surgery, and he only got so many. And it's like, well, that's the pressure leader on the team, for one, on the best pressure team in the league, for one. So chill. But yeah, like even in the chat right now, he was a waste of space. Maybe he was a waste of some money. Maybe he should have made less money. But if you took $8 million off of his contract, you'd be thrilled with him because he still did play well. And I really think that it's important to remember that the guy got like 35 pressures on the year, which was, in the top third of interior defensive linemen. The Vikings had 3 guys in that category, top third defensive linemen in terms of pressures generated. Now 2 of them are gone. The other one was Jalen Redmond. And that contract it kind of warps your mind. It makes you way more like it makes you think, well, I'd rather have Tyrion Ingram Dawkins because he satisfied the expectations, because I didn't have any because he was a 5th round rookie. And you're like happier with him, and you like mistake being happier with him against his expectations for him just being better, like point blank. And that's just not the case. Jonathan Allen is a good player that can still play, and he is going to go make some team very happy, especially if that team signs him for the vet minimum, because the Vikings are paying him $8 million in dead money guarantees. So that could happen. But even if you believe Jonathan Allen played poorly, and I would super challenge you to show me that on tape, because he did play well. He got good pressure. He was good against the run. He held his spot for the most part. Got washed out maybe a little bit, and it wasn't worth the $23 million he made. He made 23 million at the end of the day, but his cap hit in 2025 was 6.8 of that. So most of that money is still owed. So most of that money will come off of the 2026 books. Be 17 mil dead. It was, but even if you believe he was bad and you're like, great, we got rid of him. Well, now they have this huge need at the position because Jalen Redmond, as good as you think he can be, and I love the dude, he is only one person, and you need 2 or 3 of these guys. So what are you going to do? Or did we just lock in our first-round pick as a D tackle? Okay, well, forget about safety. Forget about if Caleb Downs falls down the board. Forget about if Jeremiah Love falls down the board because now you got to take a nose tackle with your 18th overall pick. That kind of sucks, right? You don't want to be priced into that. And if you want to go replace him with a free agent, well, you're probably not going to do that with just the $6.5 million that you save off of cutting Jonathan Allen. You probably have to put more into the position. So now your D tackle room just got more expensive. You better hope it gets a lot better because now you're spending, even if you're mad about how much they spent at Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, well, bad news, it's going to cost them more in 2026. It just got more expensive. They're paying more to their defensive tackles than they were before. So if you wanted that number to go down, you did not get your wish.
And as Rob points out in the chat, he could be a post-June 1st cut. Well, that's not going to help you in free agency because you don't get any of that money until after June 1st, which makes it a little bit more complicated. And I think you really hit the nail on the head, Luke.
You a little bit earlier because that $8 million, so there's offset language to it. So the $8 million in guarantees, if he does sign, let's say he signs a $10 million deal somewhere, that $8 million will get credited back to the Vikings next year. And if he is post June 1sted, then $5 million you would actually, of that 8 you would get this year. So you would get a little bit of an advance on that money. You get access to it a little faster. So that could help. And I think it's probably a wise move. But it's ultimately, you're still kind of paying debts, and it's just a matter of when that money hits your bank account.
Yeah. I think you really nailed it, though, when you said that you're mad about how much he made. You're not mad about the player being bad. And there's 2 things I want to relate to that. One is something that Matthew Collar mentioned on Twitter earlier today, which, Luke, I know you are a big Twitter user. He said he talked to Harrison Phillips.
And all over that website in the last calendar year, for sure. Been using it, definitely.
He talked to Harrison Phillips a couple years ago specifically about PFF grades, and one thing that Smith mentioned, and it's relevant today because of the retweet that Javon Hargrave had talking about, hey, if you want to rush the passer, don't go to Minnesota. It's because what they're asked to do is a lot of jumping gaps and a lot of trying to draw offensive linemen away to make things easier for blitzers, which makes a lot of sense considering how these pressure packages can work with the Minnesota Vikings. And you're not going to grade favorably for that because of how the grading system works. It's not necessarily grading you based on what your job is. It's grading you based on what they see. And sometimes those can be different things because as good as graders might and can be, you don't always have the context, which is why you always have to take that with a little bit of grain of salt. Secondly, I think this relates to TJ Hawkinson as well, because people just think he's absolute sawdust at this point, and it's because he's got a cap hit of $21 million, and he had an off year mainly because 1, the quarterback play was bad, and 2, he had to chip for like 1.5 seconds on like half of his routes or something. Like, I think these things really need to come into the forefront of people's minds more, because it's not that they're bad players. Their contracts need to be adjusted for you to feel comfortable keeping them. But this is, to me, the Allen move is all about saving cash, because if he leaves, then he signs, let's say, a $10 million contract somewhere. The Vikings don't have to pay him anything, and they save $16.2 million in fluid cash that the Wilfs don't have to pay. Not salary cap space, cash. And when I said
cash out of the Wilfs pocket, yeah.
And I know you agree with this, Luke. The Wilfs they're being cheap. They are being, hey, we put a bunch of cash over cap last year. We're not spending cash this year, which is why you're seeing Allen moved on from. Hargrave and Jones made all the sense in the world, and get it out there early. See if you can get anybody to bite. I think somebody will bite on Hargrave because this defensive tackle free agency class is rough. It's Jonathan Franklin Myers and a bunch of like 35-year-old dudes. And I mean, Hargrave's going to be one of them, but he's probably the best pass rusher of all of those 35-year-old dudes. Like, these things play a factor. And it's not just about it's like we need to talk more about what they're actually doing on the field versus the money. And
Right.
like Hawkinson is perfectly fine. And we're not here to talk about Hawkinson. We're going to get to quarterbacks here in just a second. But like Hawkinson is not good enough to have a $20 million dead.
Yeah.
Salary
Something will happen with that contract too. And in light of
Mhm.
everything else, I'm worried that he's just going to get released now too, or asked to take a pay cut or something.
But if you drop that to say $14 million, that's a lot more palatable for a guy who is really versatile, because as you mentioned with Jonathan Allen, if Hawkinson goes away, you're kind of screwed at the position. Tight end is not easy to find in the draft for a day one contributor. You could take Brock Bowers and Kyle Pitts out of the picture. Those are extreme outliers. You're going to have to like go on the bargain bin for a tight end 1, because your tight end 3 is a UDFA. So all of these things kind of come into play. And it's also why, thank God, their quarterback's probably going to cost $1.3 million, because they're going to have to try and find a way to field a relatively decent team at some positions with scraping the barrel. And I just hope people can start to understand the difference between what the salary cap is and what the cash being paid is. Because right now, they're taking a huge dead cap hit, so the Wilfs don't have to pay $16.2 million.
There is also, I think, a disconnect between what a guy's cap burden is, which is what you care about as a fan, right? What actual money is leaving the Wilfs pockets or game checks or whatever is not nearly as much a fan's business as the salary cap is, where every dollar represents opportunity cost. A dollar spent is a dollar you can't spend somewhere else. Well, Jonathan Allen's cap hit in 2025, when he got 3.5 sacks and 30 something pressures, was $6.8 million. And that's because a lot of that money was deferred into signing bonus and stuff that all becomes dead, and guaranteed salary for later that becomes dead money now. So you're thinking about him as a $17 million average annual value player, but that includes a bunch of money that he never saw. So at the end of the day, Jonathan Allen made $23 million off of the Vikings. Most of that is being paid off now for him to go play somewhere else. That feels a little inefficient to me. I don't think that's the best way to handle a situation like what you have, where you maybe overpromised to a player that delivered some, but not enough to justify it. Well, now you've got a huge burden and you're getting nothing for it. That feels like a much worse situation. And if they had kept him this year, even if they restructured the contract to get the cap hit down, that wouldn't have changed this, because in terms of actual cash he made from the Wilfs, it would have been $31 million. There's only a $6 million difference between keeping him this year and not keeping him this year. You would have saved more. If you want to save cap space, you could have cut Josh Oliver and saved more cap space and saved more cash. So something ain't mathing. So if you kept him for 2 years, and because the additional year doesn't actually change a lot about the contract, he would have been a 2-year, $31 million player. That feels a lot more palatable. Suddenly it's 15.5 a year, and then 15.5 a year for an interior guy that's getting some pressure, doing some stuff in the row. Oh, wait, whoa, that's actually kind of a decent deal. And that's the way the contract was intended to be. But with all of these contracts, when you are cutting deals with guaranteed salary left on them, that is a huge screaming, flashing sign of, we are not in the same mindset we were when we signed this thing. So when we signed Hargrave and Allen and Aaron Jones to all of those deals, we guaranteed them salary in 2026 and told them, we're doing this because we're confident we're not going to have to cut you in 2026. Now things have changed. So the mentality of the Vikings has changed. And I do think it's a cash flow issue, because to get these cap hits down without cutting the players, you have to do restructures, and that requires the Wilfs to pony up a bunch of signing bonuses, and they're not doing that. That's to me my read on why they're doing all this. Which sucks, especially if you're a Twins fan and you're dealing with this with the Pollards too. And now it's just happening again. And you dealt with this with the Timberwolves forever, right? Like, for Minnesota sports fans, that's a very sore topic. And I'm very sorry that we seem to be going through it again. And it doesn't really add up to like the merits of the players either, because way more of these big time important players, especially if we include Grenard if he gets traded, are from the side of the ball that was good. The defense was the good one. The offense was the one that was horrible. And in 2026, guess who has the most expensive offense in the league? Your Minnesota Fighting Vikings. Most expensive offense in the league coming off a bottom 5 year. And yet all they did was cut a running back that's over 30 so far. So I feel like that probably won't hold. Some of these cap hits are going to come down by hook or by crook, but like it's a very concerning pattern. And I don't blame Javon Hargrave for being sour about it, especially considering that guys like Hargrave and Allen played through injuries for this team. And then they're getting released well before there was any expectation that they should, right? You're going into a year with no guaranteed money on your contract and you're an easy cap casualty. It's like, business is a business and everybody goes their separate ways. But right now it feels like a little bit of a betrayal. So while I don't blame Javon Hargrave at all, I do want to mention that the Vikings, in terms of the accusation that the Vikings don't get pressure with interior players, is objectively incorrect. They ranked 11th in the league in 2025 in interior pressures. Javon Hargrave got pressure at about the same clip he always did. He just played less snaps because he got benched for Jalen Redmond, which doesn't feel like a schematic deficit. That feels like that was about something else maybe. And they are one of only 3 teams in the league to have 3 different players log over 30 pressures on their interior D-line. We're not talking about edge rushers. We're talking about interior guys logging over 30 pressures. Only 3 teams in the league, the Vikings, the Patriots, and the Cowboys, had 3 different players cross that 30 pressure threshold. So I would argue that the Vikings are one of the best teams at getting pressure on the interior. It's just that you got to do a little bit of dirty work on stunts sometimes, which is that's what being an interior guy is on every team. And so you want to grade that for how the Vikings do that compared to everybody else. They are at worst above average. And at best you go, wow, actually everybody eats a little bit here, but you got to be a little bit of a team player. So I don't think Javon Hargrave has a great point, but I'm also not going to begrudge him for being pissed off because the team's doing all these guys dirty.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I was Javon Hargrave, I'm mad that I'm not going to get to cash out $15 million if I would have played the entire season. That kind of sucks. I would be pissed off too. Couple things here real quick before we kind of move on, because we want to talk about quarterbacks. Got 82 of you in here. Thank you guys so much. It's the whole conversation is really interesting. And I love that you brought up, Luke, the fact that the Vikings had the most expensive offense, because they do. I'm very curious to see what the spending in free agency, and if they do make a splash, because my guess is they may make one splash. And I think that splash may be at running back, because everything I've heard, the sense you get is that they're going to spend at running back, and then they're going to like not prioritize it as heavily in the draft, which to me, very interesting. But this is going to be something that we're going to monitor throughout the course of the entire weekend. These aren't the only 3 guys. If these 3 guys are cut tomorrow, actually cut, not just, hey, they're going to be cut, because they're trying to bait people into making trades, because you'll save an extra $8 million to Jonathan Allen, $4 million to Javon Hargrave, and $2 million to Aaron Jones. The first 2, you might be able to get somebody to bite for like a 6th or a 7th. Jones, I would be absolutely floored if somebody traded for him. But it's going to be a really interesting one. And this cap conversation really does move forward into quarterbacks, because Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, potentially Tua Tagovailoa, they're all going to be able to sign for the vet minimum unless somebody offers them more than their former team was going to pay. And the only one I could see potentially getting that is Kirk Cousins, because it's just $10 million. And if there happens to be a heavy market for Kirk Cousins, it's plausible he could get like 12 to 15.
Yeah, like it's a $12 million deal would actually be a very cheap quarterback deal outside of that context. Like that's less than Daniel Jones made when he was coming off a practice squad. So
yeah, but the fact that the top 2 options for the Vikings right now seem to be, based on our reporting, Kyler Murray and Geno Smith. And it's also fair to point out, Smith is not a free agent yet. It's just believed that he is going to be released. There's been no reporting that he will be. Those 2 guys will sign for $1.3 million, because Kyler's owed over $36 million by the Cardinals. Geno Smith's owed $18.5 million by the Raiders. And I doubt either of them is going to be making more than what those teams owe them, which great for the Vikings. They get a starting caliber quarterback, whether how much you like them or not, for nothing. It's going to cost you less than $500,000 more than the 53rd player on the roster, which is making $885,000. Those are going to be like your rookie UDFAs who are on the practice squad who are now signed to a futures contract. That's
someone
that
called it
minimum
Bo
salary.
Richter money, which is literally true.
Yeah. Bo Richter is going to get 1.7 this year. So
yeah, Bo Richter will be more expensive
1.0,
than your quarterback. That's a big market inefficiency to take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that the Steelers did with Russell Wilson a couple years ago because the Broncos still owe them like $38 million, and the Vikings can benefit from it. So
it's basically the same idea.
Yeah. We have a bunch of quarterbacks here to talk about, Luke. I think we can kind of eliminate the idea right now of Derek Carr because reporting right now is nobody's called the Saints, which I'm a little bit surprised considering you could probably get him for nothing. I think we should probably limit the conversation to just a few guys. Kirk, there's been talked about ad nauseum. I think we can do that in about 2 minutes. But probably Geno Smith, Kyler Murray, and then I think we should have the conversation about Malik Willis because he is probably the most fascinating quarterback in this entire discussion and somebody who theoretically would fit really well with Minnesota. Which guy would you want to start with?
Dealer's choice, man. I'm ready for all of them.
Well, we're going to start with Winnipeg Blue Bomber Zach Collaros, who took a contract restructure today. Go Bombers. Let's start with Malik Willis because I think he's the most interesting. This past year, he only had 35 pass attempts, something like non-screen.
He's thrown fewer passes in the league than JJ McCarthy, Dorian Thompson Robinson, both the Browns quarterbacks this year, Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders. He is less experienced by pass attempts, at least, than all of those guys. And he's been in the league for 4 years.
It's a very interesting discussion point because when you look at the 3 starts he had with the Titans, he was abysmal. He was terrible. Gets traded to the Packers but ahead of the 2024 season at training camp, after training camp for a 7th round pick. And every time he got in the game, it seemed like he was playing better and more comfortable within the context of the offense. Because the one thing that I don't think people might remember is the first game he started for the Packers, he was in Green Bay for like 17 days. So this was a Carson Wentz type situation where Wentz came in right before the season started. This is what Willis was having to deal with too. And they really structured a great run game around him. Matt LaFleur, I love watching Matt LaFleur's run game because he always finds different ways to be creative and explosive with it. Then the second game, they did a lot more passing concepts and they just started building on it. And then Jordan Love came back. He barely played again. This year, he was doing more downfield vertical passing concepts and Willis was hitting a bunch of them. And he was feeling comfortable in the pocket and making sound decisions and not panicking, which was a big problem in college and at Tennessee. So when you look at everything encompassing, Luke, I think we'll both agree that the $30 million he might get is insane. I would not feel comfortable giving him a $30 million contract. If it's a Darnold deal where you can get out easy after the first year, I might be persuaded.
Surely it will be.
Yeah. Where are you on this? Because if he hits, we're talking about a guy who could hit massively because of the tools, but we just have no idea if he's going to be able to apply them with any kind of sustained success.
There's still a lot of Saturday to his game. That's what I got. So I did a Patreon video on this. It's like 35 minutes and it encompasses all of the plays that he had as a Packer. I threw out the Titans stuff. I talked to Tyler Rowland a lot about that actually in between Locked On NFL bouts. Tyler Rowland does Locked On Titans. So he covered Malik Willis during that time. And he essentially pins the entire failure on coaches that have all been fired. And he says, you got to throw that out. So I'll listen to him. I'll throw that out. And so unfortunately it makes the sample smaller, but with the Packers, he did play in 5 games. The 2 at the beginning of 2024 are a little more difficult to glean anything from because he had just gotten there and they were running a lot of screens and it was a lot of unserious stuff. So that's totally fair. And then he took over in the back half of a meaningless game in 2024. The Packers had already clinched the playoffs and they were, they were putting in the 2s against the Bears. And so he played in that one. He actually struggled quite a bit in that one. His mechanics can get away from him as games go on. and he kind of has there's not like this is not a guy that's going to make you defend every blade of grass. He will make you defend deep, which I think makes him a great fit for what O'Connell wants, because O'Connell doesn't want to go horizontal. He wants to go vertical. And I think that's a great fit for O'Connell. But this is, according to Tom Pelissero, at least, this is not where the Vikings are headed, because they don't want to spend that money, right? They're cheaping out on everything. And then watching Malik Willis after he took over, coming in cold off the bench when Jordan Love got his concussion last year against Chicago. And then that game against the Ravens where it was backup versus backup, and he actually played amazingly in that game. There were some really, really awesome plays. But everything he had done up to that point felt manufactured. It felt very, we've got a backup in, so here's a tunnel screen, here's a stick, here's a slant, here's an easy concept. I know you know how to run because you probably did it since high school. And then every once in a while, a really sick deep shot. And I like the deep ball a lot from him. That's probably what you're really buying for, is that explosiveness. And then he can run, and that's also part of it. And then really it was that Ravens game is what's getting him paid. And there's like 4 or 5 passes that you're like, whoa, that's like real stuff. That's real Sunday quarterbacking. So the bet that you're making, to me, is that what happened against Baltimore on, was it Christmas or around in December, late in the year?
It was the weekend after Christmas. Yeah, it was like
weekend
2 days after
Christmas.
the Vikings game.
So the way that you're betting is that what happened there was a true blue breakout, and you're going to get that all the time now, which feels very, very risky. Just based on what was happening with the Ravens defense. Like, you're taking one game. There's all kinds of things, right? The safety could have been hung over. Like, and are you betting on that now? And when you don't get that next time, is it going to be the same thing? I have a lot of concerns about Malik Willis when it comes to game in and game out. As much as Kwesi gets clowned on, there was one thing he said that really stuck with me. That's, to be a true champion, you got to win a lot of different kinds of games. You got to win these defensive slugums. You got to win a shootout. You got to win one where they're blitzing a lot. You got to win one where they're not blitzing at all. One where they play single high. One where they play too high. You got to win against a lot of different kinds of teams and win different kinds of games. And the versatility to Malik Willis's game doesn't seem like it's there. If you can cap the deep stuff and keep him in the pocket, like, a lot of what you paid for is no longer accessible. And I don't really see like that complete of a skill set, I guess, is what I would say about him. So I don't think he's worth 30 mil at all. I think that's a mistake for whoever does it. I don't love that the reason the Vikings are doing it doesn't seem to have anything to do with that. I think even if he did look like he was going to be the next big thing, they aren't going to pony up for this, which is concerning. But I'm not going to cry too many tears if he ends up like going to the Jets.
Hopefully he ends up with somebody who can use him. The rumor right now is the Cardinals with Mike LaFleur, who, I mean,
sure,
all you have to do is call his brother, and it makes some sense. Before we end up jumping to the other two, I've seen a couple comments about Anthony Richardson, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about Richardson, because we had a lot of discussions about him 3 years ago when he was coming out in the draft. We know that the Vikings attempted to make a massive trade up to try and go get Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about bringing in Richardson now? And would that be the thing that ends up getting the Minnesota Vikings hard knocks for the first time?
Oh my God. I feel like they're really likely to get hard knocks this year, no matter what, because HBO wants to put a camera on JJ McCarthy so we can get more memes. Because that's really all Hard Knocks is now, is they're just trying to get a viral clip. And boy, you're going to get a viral clip out of 9. But I still believe in Anthony Richardson. I think that the vast majority of his career is still in front of him, and it's just a matter of how long it takes and how many teams he's going to have to cycle through before he finds something that sticks. But with Richardson, and I will say this about Kyler Murray too, and I'll explain it when we talk about him, you are buying into a repair job. You are buying a fixer-upper. Both, like, I think a lot of what made Anthony Richardson fail in Indianapolis was interpersonal. It was how people in that building reacted when he pulled himself out of the game. How a lot of the football guys, react when a quarterback is injured a lot. And we're seeing the same thing in Minnesota and elsewhere in the league as they watch these situations from the outside going, God, that guy's hurt a lot. and sort of hold it against the guy, and they say, well, he's hurt a lot. He's going to keep getting hurt a lot, even though we know that doesn't tend to follow, the way that he learned and developed and worked with people. There is a relationship there that is fractured. But to me, Richardson's athleticism is still very much a thing. I don't think the injuries have taken that away. But there is still a lot that is wrong, that remains wrong, that comes, and very similar to JJ McCarthy, that comes in moments where you don't get to be in shorts in a real game. When there's a muddy pocket, when there's, the timing needs to be adjusted. Those little adjustments you have to make on the fly to kind of keep a play on schedule without turning it into a scramble drill. It's just not a skill set that he has. And that's something that comes up on like a quarter of plays. This is not like, what the 3 times they blitz, he's not going to. No, this is like a vast portion of an offense has to, like, anytime any defender does anything right, you've got to be able to adjust for that. And you've got to be able to say, oh, that's going to take, 1 step longer. Okay, I'll buy 1 more step. And you have to be very calm about that. But it really turns Anthony Richardson into some of his worst moments when that happens, whether it's pressure from the line, whether it's somebody got jammed on a route or whatever. It's like, it's a very fragile game. So this is a fixer upper. It's also cheap. Throw a 6th rounder at it. Who cares? Right.
Yeah.
At least that's what the Colts reporters are saying it's going to cost. Like late day 3, we don't care kind of compensation, because I think they just want to get rid of him and move on. They just don't want the specter of the 4th overall pick kind of hanging a cloud over their organization. So it is a fixer upper, but it's cheap, and that to me tells me it's like I hesitate to even bring it up, but it's the Josh Freeman logic. It's a flyer. Whatever. Doesn't work out, doesn't cost us much. That's the way I feel about Anthony Richardson. And as such, I think if you get Anthony Richardson, it shouldn't preclude you from going out and getting one of those other veterans like Kyler or Geno or Cousins or whatever else you're going to do. He doesn't give you the floor that you're looking for. This could absolutely bottom out. He could be cut at camp. If you like that is a real possibility in wherever he goes, is that he does not make the team because he's just not ready to. And you are spending with that in mind, but it doesn't change your quarterback situation. It just gives you another flyer, which might be worth it.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about Richardson, it would be a $5.38 million cap hit, which in a cap crunch that the Vikings are dealing with might be a little rich for what they're doing. But here's the reality of the situation. If he stinks, doesn't matter. You gave up a late day 3 pick and you gave it a shot. If he, in the 5% chance, let's call it 5%, the 5% chance that Anthony Richardson hits, and if he hits big, you could be talking about an NFL MVP.
You're changing the entire direction of the franchise. Yeah.
That's the risk you're taking, because this is a Trey Lance situation, because he's 24 years old. He started 14 college games, which I believe is Lance started, I think, 17 games. Like Richardson, since he graduated high school, has thrown less passes than Bo Nix threw in the 2025 season. So you are looking at a guy who, as you said, is a complete rehab project, but there's so much ability there. Like, I think this is the ideal player that Kevin O'Connell wants to work with.
Well, we know that Kevin O'Connell loves him. And ultimately, and here's the thing about this. We usually talk about these in the context of a GM, of someone with a focused vision, and we go, well, what's the plan if they get Anthony Richardson? I don't think that we're in that case right now, because it's a chaotic committee, right? It's that's running things right now. It's Brzezinski a little bit, but it's collaboration is the word they use for it. But to me, that's so many cooks in the kitchen. But ultimately, Kevin O'Connell's going to get what he wants at quarterback. Whatever the team's priorities are, that's Kevin O'Connell's priorities. Let's be honest, right? Nobody's going to be like, actually, Kevin, here's what I think we're going to do at QB. No, they're going to listen to him. And we know O'Connell loves Richardson. We know the Colts are open to moving him. And so it might not be about what does that say to JJ McCarthy? What does that mean for their plans for the future or anything like that? It might not be any deeper than, hey, O'Connell really liked that guy. Let's go get him.
Yeah, exactly. And the one interesting part about bringing in a guy like Richardson, or bringing in a guy like Kyler, who we're going to talk about next, it's a low commitment. You're not committing anything past the 2026 season. You're not committing for Kyler Murray. It's 1.3 million. For Richardson, it'd be 5.38. You're not even committing a lot of money. So you don't have to go in there and feel like it's like you're beholden to this player. Right now, I don't even know if they're beholden to JJ McCarthy based on how this offseason has gone. Now, you have brought up the point where, and it's a good one, national media is like, oh, they're done with him. And local media has not exactly said the same thing. So that's an interesting talking point as well. But let's kind of use that to spin into Kyler Murray, who I threw up a poll in the chat. We have 32 votes so far. Of the 4 quarterbacks we're going to talk about tonight, Kyler Murray is leading with 56% is who they want the Vikings to sign. When I watched this film, I just tried to look at it from a neutral perspective because I've watched him ever since he was in college before Oklahoma. And he's an interesting player. There's a lot of arm ability there, but he's kind of like Mighty Mouse. And that presents its own realm of challenges. Plus, he's always played in like an air raid-esque style offense. And even with Drew Petzing, they were modifying what he wanted to do to accommodate Kyler. My theory is this, Luke, and I want your opinion. He is not a scheme fit. Not whatsoever. He does not really equate to anything that Kevin O'Connell wants to do. But I don't think it matters because he completely eliminated half of what he wanted to do with J.J. McCarthy last year and tried to make it work so they could win football games. And by the end of the season, it was working. I think you just do the same thing for Kyler Murray, and they'd run a bunch of air raid-esque concepts, run stuff like Y-cross, get a bunch of screens.
Move the middle of the field.
Yeah. In the last full season that Kyler Murray played, he threw, I think it was 42 or 45 throws over the middle of the field from 10 yards and beyond. Sam Darnold in that same season threw like 120. It's a massive difference. And we're just talking like it's an interesting conversation because of all the quarterbacks, Kyler Murray's arguably the most talented other than Richardson. And Murray has at least had success, however you want to quantify it. What's your take on Murray?
So I'm working on a Patreon video about it as we speak. And I think the first thing to acknowledge is I'm super, super with you on this is not exactly a fit for what O'Connell has classically wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And the way that he has found the most success is by pushing quarterbacks to chase more explosives, right? Embrace the greed. He did it with Cousins and Darnold and tried to do it with McCarthy and then it failed really bad. And even in the games where it worked with McCarthy, where they kind of simplified things, he was still throwing really deep. McCarthy ended up 8th in average depth of target in the league. Murray shouldn't do that. Murray is at his best when you can quick strike, quick outs to the sideline, spread things out and play horizontal, and then add that to a read option run game, and you put a ton of stress on linebackers, and you horizontally split everybody, and that's how you make space for him. That is how you find success with Kyler Murray. It's how Cliff did it in 2021. That is the point. And O'Connell's a vertical guy. Murray's a horizontal guy. That's where I think the fit doesn't make any sense. But Tyler, we're just overruled here because Kevin O'Connell wants him. That's already been reported that by Kevin Seifert that Kyler Murray is like option 1A for the Vikings. So he's got some kind of plan. And okay, we'll see what you come down with. But considering what I disagree with you on is I don't think he changed enough of his offense to facilitate McCarthy. He just stopped coaching his mechanics, and then suddenly McCarthy stopped thinking so bad and things got better. So he just stopped actively harming his young quarterback, which is like, oh, nice job, QB whisperer. But the scheme itself still went really deep. It did not become let's run stick and slant flat. It was still McVay, progress across the field, try to find deep opportunities when you can, hit that backside basic to Justin Jefferson. That's what I think they still want to do. And I think if they bring in Kyler Murray and then basically just resolve to be a team that doesn't throw over the middle of the field, boy, that is just a really bad way to use Justin Jefferson, whose favorite route is the backside dig.
Yeah.
But beyond that, what I see with Kyler Murray is, like I said with Richardson, this is a repair job. This is a fixer-upper, because the way that he was throwing the ball in the first few years of his career was very confident and smooth, and he was stepping into his throws, and the mechanics were nice, and there was a confidence to it that allowed him to be a lot more accurate. And a lot of the misses that you're seeing now from Kyler Murray is a guy who has been hurt a lot, rattled. This is a guy that shies away from possible contact. Mm-hmm. And whenever there is pressure or the perception of pressure, which sometimes happens when there isn't really pressure, but Kyler Murray feels it because someone has to give up a step or whatever, like your line needs to be perfect. If they get walked back one step but recover the rep and call it a win, Murray might still react to that as though you got beat. Then suddenly what should be a win for his guard becomes a loss because he goes into scramble mode. And what really bothers me about Murray, and I don't think that there is a singular NFL team that can protect their quarterback well enough to avoid this, is whenever he does see that flash of color, he'll immediately abandon his feet. So he'll be lined up. If he can just line up, first read, top of the drop, no hitch, throw. Still works pretty nicely. You can get some really nice backside, like back shoulder fade kind of stuff. You can get the ball out quickly on 5-yard outs and stick plays and these kind of easy first down kind of things that you usually want, those easy buttons that you and I were begging for all season long. You can still hit all that stuff, and there is a lot that you can do there. But I got a feeling when I was watching Murray that I got when I was watching Wentz, that as soon as you can't get the ball out at the top of the drop right away, first or second read, it goes into panic mode. And what he does is he will abandon his footwork. So his feet will be planted where they're supposed to be for the throw. But the second he sees that flash of color, he immediately goes into run mode, which means he squares his feet to the line of scrimmage, loses his throwing base. And even if he keeps his eyes downfield, he's now lost all the power on his throw and he's going to start spraying him. So that to me is we've lost the confidence of we've lost the confidence in ourselves, right? That's what it feels like to me with Kyler Murray. And you know what? A change of scenery can go a long way toward that. Maybe QB Whisperer can fix that. If we get it, maybe we need a mulligan on the QB Whisperer thing and just say 2025 was a wash, or JJ McCarthy is just coach proof because he's so horribly bad or something. And maybe all those takes get validated. But to me, Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray, these are fix-em-up jobs. These are, that guy's broken by the team that drafted him, and he needs to come here where I can fix him. And if you compare that to Cousins, Carr, Geno, these older players, those players aren't fix-em-up jobs. Those guys are who they are, and they always will be. And those to me are Band-Aids that in the best possible outcome they represent, they keep the seat warm for a little while you go get the long-term thing, but they cannot themselves represent the long-term thing, which is why I'm less excited about Geno than you are. Because even if you do acknowledge, no, that last year, that was just a Raiders problem. He's actually still the guy that you saw in Seattle. Well, that guy still can't be your dude for the long term, right? That you still need. Quarterback becomes a need next offseason, and you're right back in this. Whereas the world where you do win the fix them up with Anthony Richardson or Kyler Murray, okay, that's your dude now. And you've got the problem is fixed, and you've completely earned forgiveness for whiffing on JJ McCarthy because you have your franchise quarterback. You cannot say that about Kirk Cousins, right? He's retiring any minute now. And so that's where I land on that. I think the upside of Murray is certainly worth a shot, but the critique that I'm going to do, and I'm going to record Locked On Vikings not long after this, and I'm going to say this. Kyler Murray represents an option that is cheap, but I don't think he represents the option that is going to be the best quarterback of all of these free agents moving forward. He is cheap. He is a reclamation project, but I think that the Vikings are excited about him because he will play for you on the veteran minimum, not because he will make my offense really a lot better. And it goes into the grander theme of this offseason and this whole show that I feel about the Vikings, which is that they are looking to save money for 2026. They are not looking to win a championship for 2026. And I think that we all as Vikings fans need to decide exactly how much we want to invest in that.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to Geno Smith, because I think the Kirk Cousins thing is just, hey, you know what you're going to get. We've seen him the last 2 years in Atlanta. We saw, like, we're not going to get a guy who was trending toward maybe being an MVP candidate in 23 before the Achilles. But what we are going to get is, well, he's just going to be Kirk. I don't really think we can say a whole lot more than that.
A guy who's a backup.
If you really
at this point in his career,
if you really want JJ to start the whole season, Kirk's the guy you sign. I think that's the best way to frame it. I want to have a longer form conversation about Geno though, because I think if you really want to do the redshirt thing, and you only want to do the redshirt thing with the idea of JJ McCarthy being the guy full time in 2027, I think Geno Smith makes the most sense in the world because he can at least give you some stability. And what he does really fits how Kevin O'Connell wants to play football. He's willing to attack down the field. He's willing to attack over the middle, and he's willing to do so in tight windows. Kevin O'Connell
still make all the throws.
He can still attack every blade of grass. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And O'Connell has shown a willingness to be okay with some interceptions if it means you are taking chances to get splash plays. And Geno is going to throw some interceptions. He's thrown interceptions pretty much every year he's been a starter. Last year was the worst, and I think he wasn't even a top 5 issue with that Raiders offense last year. He was probably 6 or 7. And he wasn't great, but you still saw that he still has all the ability, and that wasn't the issue why that Raiders offense was so poor and Geno played as bad as he did. It wasn't because he lost the arm talent. It wasn't because he just all of a sudden became a dumber quarterback. There were so many other outside factors. You look at the 2024 Seahawks, you can make the argument, hey, he did throw too many interceptions. He absolutely did. Like, the one thing with these quarterbacks is none of them are good options. We're talking
That's where I'm at too. Yeah. There is not like a one I'd be happy with. All of this sucks.
Yeah, all of it sucks. But if you really do believe in McCarthy and you want to get a guy who can operate your offense and maybe play well enough so this team can win a bunch of games. You're not going to win because of him, but you're not going to lose because of him. I think Geno Smith is probably the best option for that path. Now, is he the best option overall? I still think shooting the moon for Richardson's your best option overall because the upside is great and there's probably going to be downside in every one of these situations. The downside is you just draft a quarterback in 27 where hopefully it finally delivers to be a good quarterback class and you can get another guy. But where are you at on Geno? Because like that offense was terrible to watch and Geno didn't exactly make it better either.
Yeah, he deserves his fair share of the heat for that. I think he's got his piece of the blame pie there. I don't think we can write it off entirely as it was just the Raiders. But even if you do that, and this is I don't disagree with your film analysis on Geno, at least from the Seahawks time. Mm-hmm. If they sign him, I would go watch the Raiders a little closer and really check in on those takes and see if I can get something a little bit more detailed. But the way I view it right now, from what Raiders I did see, I did think that the arm kind of died on him a little bit. I think the velocity came away a little bit. And I don't think that's not coming back with age. That's only going one direction. So even if it still is 90% of what it was, that 90 ain't going up to 95, right? It will only go down in the future, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing about it is like the situation where the year 3 of a quarterback's rookie contract and you're talking about bridge QBs, you are not starting that guy in year 4. This is not Jordan Love. And this, if the Vikings bring in Geno Smith in the current state that he's in, and JJ McCarthy loses a camp competition to him, I do not think that he is on the roster in 2027. I think that's just fair. It. I think you're just dumping him for a day 3 pick, and you're doing what the Colts are doing with Anthony Richardson. You're saying, let me get this black cloud out of here. We'll pin all this on Kwesi because he's not even here yet. We'll say that was his problem, and we'll all survive with our jobs. And if Geno Smith plays well enough to make you, 8 and 9, and you feel like you were a reasonable team, maybe you all save your jobs. But if Geno comes in and plays as a starter and not a backup, beats JJ McCarthy in that, it immediately feels like this is everybody's mentality is Operation Save My Job, not Operation Let's Go Win a Championship with Geno Smith. Give me a break. That's not where we're at. And I think I'm not over it. I think I'm not over looking at a Vikings team that for the first time since I can ever remember, the goal isn't a Super Bowl. The goal is save money and save my job. And that just feels so toxic. It feels so Jets. It feels so Titans and Cardinals. That's the kind of at the root of like where I'm losing it.
It feels Matt Nagy and Matt Eberflus.
Yeah, it's just so dark. And that kind of darkness, when you have seasons where that is allowed to be the mentality, it's really hard to get that, hey, let's go be champions mentality back. And, it took the Lions 50 years to get that back, So that's what I'm worried that it's Operation Save My Job, save money, save the ownership's pocketbook, because this isn't worth investing into anymore. It's like this acknowledgement. No, we're not going to win a championship, and maybe we never will. So at least let's make it so that I can leave more money to my kids when I die. Like that's the accusation I feel like they can't beat. But back to the sorry, I got on a tangent. Back to the point about Geno is it really feels like that. It feels like a white flag on the season, or it feels like I just want an adult backup, and we really are going with JJ McCarthy, which is still very much one of the options at quarterback. Is JJ McCarthy. Even if they sign Kyler or trade for Richardson or both, JJ McCarthy being a starter week 1 is absolutely in the cards. And as much as he gets clowned on, you got to remember, played a little better down the stretch. He's going into his first healthy offseason, has a chance to take a leap, something that we've seen before when these guys get their first real offseason of work. Usually it's their second year, but JJ was hurt for his. And that is absolutely possible. And if you look at the way Kyler played in the last couple of games, that Thursday nighter in the rivalry uniforms against the Seahawks, and then the one against the Titans where they blew the lead, those are the last 2 games that he played. Then he had his foot injury and he got benched after that. If you look at that, you see a lot of the same, not necessarily the exact same issues, but the same caliber of issue where you're like, this guy can't do it. You cannot throw if you're always on your back foot. You cannot play quarterback if one flash of color, even if it's a stunt that's getting picked up, but you saw a flash of color, and then suddenly you go into scramble mode and you lose your feet, and then you throw an inaccurate pass and it turns into an interception. That's untenable. That's unsustainable. You cannot be a quarterback in that world. And I saw him attempt throws that looked like some of JJ McCarthy's best highlights on the season, and then just like whiff on him. And I'm like, man, if it comes down to who can make the seam throw up the tight end, JJ McCarthy's better at it than Kyler Murray is. And if you don't believe me, go watch him. Go watch Kyler Murray miss him. JJ McCarthy misses him less, bar none. But I feel like because he's such a meme, and he's got clowned on so much, and he's so cringe, that people aren't willing to look at anything that JJ McCarthy does and say, well, actually, there is a couple of good things here. Like, you're just not willing to acknowledge it. Everything is bad. He's going to lose a competition to anybody. I heard podcasters say they could beat him in a camp competition. Like, people are just not being reasonable anymore. And I see like the vibe around Kyler Murray from people who don't project him to go to the Vikings is that Kyler Murray has to go be a backup now. Geno Smith was a backup. Kirk Cousins was a backup. I think Derek Carr might be in that same spot, whether he wants to or not. And that might be the tension there, why the Saints aren't getting calls. A lot of these quarterbacks were starters and are ready to go go through their backup arc now. Like Russell Wilson did, right? 5 years ago, Russell Wilson backup quarterback was unthinkable, but it isn't now. So absolutely, no matter who this is, there will be an opportunity for JJ McCarthy to show up, prove that he's a better quarterback than he was last year, and win that job. And if you don't think so, you're probably just a little bit too pilled on the memes. And you probably need to remember that these are people that can improve at things. I mean, shoot, I'm going to guess that most of these listeners are over the age of 22, 23, over JJ McCarthy's age. I think most of you are older than JJ McCarthy. I feel like I'm safe in saying that.
You are.
What were you good at when you were 23 that you would maxed out at, that you were as good at as you were ever going to be?
Being 22.
Yeah, it's leaving people, forgetting to text people back. Like, maybe that's what it is. What were you the best? What were you maxed out at 23 that you were never going to get better at?
Yeah.
Every time I meet somebody that's over the age of 40 and they start talking to me about JJ McCarthy, like when they find out what I do for a living, I ask that question, and every single time they go, huh. Because you were all idiots at 22 or 23. I was too. Come on now. We all know.
Blink 182 told us nobody likes you when you're 23. So it
Very
tracks.
true.
Luke, this has been a great episode. I always love having you on and talking ball. I want to give you the floor because you have an announcement to share to the people, and it'll give producer Dave time to jump back in the bottom corner before we finish this sucker out.
Yes, join in to the Locked On Vikings YouTube channel live at 10 p.m. on Monday. So the tampering window will have opened. We'll have some news probably to deal with. We'll see if the Vikings did anything in the first few hours, and we will be live to talk about whatever went down. We'll also have more cuts and stuff to talk about. So 10 p.m. live on the Locked On Vikings YouTube channel, and you will see what's been going on with the Locked On Vikings network, because things are been a little different the last month. A lot of people are asking about it. The answers will be told on Monday night.
Mm-hmm. Is that 10 p.m. Central?
Yes, he said Central.
Yes, 10 p.m. Central. Yes, okay. Yes.
And I am one of those answers, Luke.
Oh.
So they already know at least part of it.
That's true.
It's very true.
That's very true. Yes. And it was awesome.
Thank you. I have one more question, Luke, before we go. What's your ideal quarterback room in 2026 rapid fire?
Among the options possible?
Yes. So no Joe Burrow, no Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, of course. I would take a mud at the wall approach. We know that Wentz is going to be a part of it. We know JJ and Brosmer are already under contract. They'll be in camp. Trade for Anthony Richardson and sign Kyler Murray. This will cost you $1.3 million and a sixth. These are very cheap things. Teams do have 5 quarterbacks in camp sometimes. It's a thing. And then let the games begin and cut 2 of them on cutdown day.
Dave, what do you have for Luke and I before we wrap this thing up?
It's been a great night. Good conversation. I think it's absolutely awesome. It's always good to have Luke here. I agree with Luke on what to do for quarterbacks.
Mud at the wall?
Yeah, basically. Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray for cheap.
Yep.
And we should ignore the Carson Wentz idea and just sign Trey Lance and get the trifecta.
There you go. Get on with NDSU. Well, Carson Wentz will be in the room no matter what. That's already been reported that he's expected to sign back with the Vikings, and I think he's only interested in playing for the Vikings. So that'll be a new thing.
And then you got Brosmer that can hang out on the practice squad.
Sure.
I thought he had a lot of potential coming out of training camp, and I was pretty steadfast on that. Man, after how bad the 2 starts went, there was so little redeemable about either of those starts. I don't even know if I want to waste the practice squad spot on them.
You can always get another UDFA.
I think to the same point about what I just said about JJ McCarthy, and I know Brosmer's older than McCarthy, but and has more like college experience, but like when you hear that he's not ready to play, and I remember hearing that about like Kellen Mond a lot, or, you know, insert young quarterback here. Well, he's not ready. He's not ready. And then when he is ready, he comes in and he outplays whatever bridge quarterback was in front of him. And people then look at it and like, what do you mean? You thought the young guy was better than what wasn't better than that idiot? What do you do? And the guy will get ridicule for like holding back until the young guy wasn't ready to play. Max Brosmer shows you what not ready to play looks like. But I don't know if those games, he was so not ready to play and overwhelmed and incapable of running an offense that, like, man, when the game does slow down for him, and it will, it always does if given enough time, what does that look like is still a question worth pursuing. And that's exactly what the practice squad is for.
That's fair. That's completely fair. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Luke, for joining as well. Make sure you check out Locked On Vikings for the new era of the program, 10 p.m. Central Time on Monday. And you'll be able to do that after you watch the Real Forno show at 6:05 on Monday. So you get to see all 3 of us. And don't forget, 2 old bloggers, Sunday afternoon, 4:05 Central Time, to preview what's going to go on in free agency and whatever the heck Darren wants to talk about. Maybe he'll talk about my Blue Bombers and Zach Collaros' restructure earlier today. I don't know. but we're going to have some fun. And there are a couple SKOL surges still coming in the pipeline, so be on the lookout for that. And remember, big news. That's why we ask you to ring that bell for the notifications. We went live on Tuesday and had a great conversation about Kyler and Jonathan Grenard. We'll do it again if it warrants. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Tyler. He's Luke. He's producer Dave. SKOL Vikings, everybody.
SKOL Vikings. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And share this episode with your friends and even your enemies. We'd love it. Thanks for watching Vikings First and SKOL. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network, and we appreciate each and every one of you. SKOL.